In a huge snub to Bharat's rogue neighbor, India has signed the long-pending historic free trade agreement with the United Kingdom. This happened on the 6th of May, marking a significant milestone in the bilateral strategic partnership. The free trade agreement was announced after a telephonic exchange between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and British PM Keir Starmer, during which they succeeded in concluding a huge bilateral comprehensive strategic partnership that would foster trade, investment, innovation, and job creation in both these leading economies. Prime Minister Modi, after finalizing the pact, confirmed the news on platform X, stating, "These landmark agreements will further deepen our comprehensive strategic partnership and catalyze trade, investment, growth, job creation, and innovation in both our economies. I look forward to welcoming Prime Minister Starmer to India soon." Unquote. The Prime Minister's office further stated that the two leaders agreed that expanding economic and commercial ties between India and Britain remain a cornerstone of the increasingly robust and multifaceted partnership. Calling it a historic moment, UK's Prime Minister Starmer hailed the agreement, saying, quote, "Britain has agreed on a landmark trade deal with India. Fantastic news for British businesses, British workers, and British shoppers, delivering on our plan for change." Unquote. This free trade agreement has been finalized after Indian Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal held talks with Jonathan Reynolds, the Business and Trade Secretary of Britain, in London last week. Termed as the biggest and most economically significant bilateral trade agreement, this deal is expected to bolster bilateral trade between the world's fourth biggest and sixth largest economies by $25.5 billion to $34.1 billion a year from 2040, further propelling India towards its bid to become the world's third biggest economy before 2030. Remember, development coincides with the tariff upheaval caused by US President Donald Trump after he imposed and then paused tariffs on India as well as other key global allies amid an escalating global trade war between United States and China. But what does the UK-India FTA entail? As the name suggests, as part of this free trade agreement, India will cut levies on 90% of British products sold within the country. This ranges from whiskey to mechanical devices, machinery, as well as lamb. In return, India will hugely benefit from Britain slashing tariffs on major products which were relatively lower than India's. This leaves 99% of Indian exports to Britain now facing zero duties from now on. But most importantly, this will also facilitate the movement of Indian professionals and highly trained professionals to Britain for further employment opportunities. After a pause of 9 months, the trade talks with the UK resumed in February this year. But since July last year, the Labour government led by Prime Minister Keir Starmer had been pushing to secure this free trade deal with India and reset the overall bilateral partnership in critical areas. Now, this is why he had sent British Foreign Secretary David Lammy on a 2-day visit to New Delhi, where he met Indian Prime Minister Modi as well as his own counterpart, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. Lammy hailed India as the emerging superpower of the 21st century and the fastest growing economy in the world today. Back-to-back engagements with India regarding the trade deal indicate that the UK this time meant real action, with India focusing on unlocking mutual growth and boosting innovation, jobs, and investment in these uncertain times. The free trade agreement will open up Indian markets to United Kingdom and bypass all high tariff barriers. Economic think tank Global Trade Research Initiative says that the pact will offer a significant price advantage and enhance UK's exports as well as enhance India's competitiveness in the UK market. United Kingdom and India already share a mutually beneficial trade partnership as the bilateral trade rose to $21.3 billion in FY24, up from $20.3 billion in FY23, further up from $17.5 billion in fiscal year 2022. This move reflects the United Kingdom's Labour government's desire to cement a strategic economic alliance with India moving forward. This even as Pakistan finds itself increasingly isolated. Global airlines have boycotted Pakistani airspace while its already struggling markets and stock market has tanked by over 4% ever since the escalation and tensions with India along the border. Islamabad today is surviving on loans and international bailouts. Meanwhile, the European Union called for restraint in South Asia after its foreign minister, Kaja Kallas, urged for de-escalation of tensions during discussions with India's Jaishankar and Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar earlier in May. In a bold response to the EU's stance on this issue, Jaishankar roared back, saying, quote, "When we look out at the world, we look for partners. We do not look for preachers, particularly preachers who do not practice at home and preach abroad." I think some of Europe is still struggling with that problem. Some of it has changed, unquote. Taking a jibe at nations failing to take a firm stand against Pakistan's state policy and the massacre of 26 Indian tourists in Kashmir, Jaishankar expressed that India expects Europe to grow a backbone and move beyond preaching. India has already announced a slew of diplomatic decisions, including the suspension of the Indus Water Treaty, as well as all bilateral trade with Pakistan. Britain also showcased supporting India by putting Pakistan on the spot. British Airways has shunned Pakistani airspace in the wake of New Delhi-Islamabad diplomatic friction. Flight tracking data has shown majority of flights of British Airways, Swiss International Airlines, as well as others like Emirates, moving away from Pakistan, turning north towards Delhi to avoid Pakistani airspace after traveling over the Arabian Sea, taking a longer route but avoiding Pakistan. Pakistan's airline industry has consistently struggled and will now face the brunt of decisions taken by global carriers as it disproportionately is dependent on international flights and overflight fees. This indicates that earnings of the nation, which is already cash-strapped, will further become bleak due to a major cut in overflight fees. In another huge setback, sources have revealed to ANI that the United Nations Security Council, consisting of P5 members like US, France, UK and Russia, came down heavily on Islamabad during a closed-door consultation held earlier in May. The bloc tightened its nose over Islamabad and grilled it over the role of Pakistan-based groups like the LET and their involvement in last month's attack. Moreover, they slammed Pakistan over making continuous threats in terms of its public nuclear rhetoric and posturing, which has the risk of provoking and escalating this situation. The bloc also refused to accept any Pakistani false flag narrative claims and asked it to sort out its issues bilaterally with India. Islamabad is fast losing global support, and while India is consolidating its position as a 21st century economic superpower. But what do you believe? Will the free trade agreement with UK make India a central pillar of the global supply chain? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.